In my opinion, I was born twice. So the first time being taking your first breath, meeting your parents, having them hold you in your arms. And at this point in your life, all your cards are already dealt. They're predetermined. So you can't decide which family you're going to be born into, or the color of your eyes, or the experiences that you're going to have. So little did I know at this time that the life that I was going to be brought into was going to be lived in black and white. So my life started off with a brain tumor. Usually you'd look at that as something you don't want to think about, or all the awful things that that entailed. But how I see it is that it actually taught me strength, and it made me grow up from a very young age, which in turn gave me the strength to survive the life I was about to have. While this was going on and after, my brother, who's older than me, decided to use me as his sexual pawn. So every night he'd come into my room, and not going to go into details there, but I'm sure most of you can put two and two together. So he would hold this control over me and tell me that I was worthless and it was my fault, and if I told anyone, I would be seen in a really bad light. So obviously at a young age, 5, 6, 7, 8, etc., I believed all this. So I used to pray at the side of my bed every single night for years and years and years that it would stop. And I was raised religious. I was raised Catholic. Church twice a week, altar girl, all that. So I had a lot of faith in God. And, when that time never came, I lost all my faith. I blamed the church. I blamed, everything, because why wasn't I saved? So at 9 years old, from my abusive parents, I was left alone for Christmas. They went away for a few days, and who knows what I did. Usually it was my brother saying I did something that I didn't, just to hold that control and manipulation. So I got in trouble for something, so I was home alone for a few days. And so at 9, I remember seeing my dad at a work party, and he seemed really happy. He was shoving his head in the ice bucket, laughing, my introvert dad. And it's because he was drinking something that I'd call fire water. So I went to their fire water cabinet, and I took a bottle and I sipped it, and then another, and then another, and then another, and it goes on till I think I sipped everyone in there. Next thing I know, I was on the ground, I was crawling, vomiting, shaking, obviously drank way too much, especially at my young age, and it was awful. It was such an awful experience. So why did I go back to it? Because for the first time in my life, I didn't have to feel. I didn't have to think about all the things that was going on. It kind of numbed everything, and that was the feeling that I craved from then on, from 9 on. Which goes into my dad. We didn't have a relationship until I was around 14. Mind you, he's my saving grace now, but growing up, the only relationship I had with him was a physically abusive one. My mom, who's basically self-diagnosing here, but narcissistic, materialistic, very self-centered. She's a bully, verbally and emotionally abusive to the end. She would tell my dad, oh, Olivia did this or this or this, go fix the problem. And fixing the problem was beating your child. So I would have to put up with that, even though I knew I did nothing wrong. And I remember one day I was sitting in my room, just in the corner crying because I had just been beaten. And my mom comes into my room, and I think that she's actually going to apologize for what she did because I hadn't done anything. And she opens the door and says, I don't know how you can live with yourself, so you shouldn't. And then closes the door. So at the age of 12, I went to weed. And whoever says that isn't a gateway drug, it's a gateway drug. At least for me it was. So from that point on, I started doing everything under the light. You name it, I've tried it, I've done it, I've been addicted to it. So, that kind of started a life of addiction. The only time I really felt happy was when I was with my yaya. I'm Greek, and yaya is grandmother in Greek, and she was my saving grace. She was the sweetest woman in the world. She did everything for me. She taught me how to cook, showed me love that I had never felt. I didn't have any for myself or anything around me. And unfortunately, 5 years ago, it was just me and her in a room, and she died in my arms. So that was extremely hard for me, and it just blew my addiction into a spiral of everything, doing everything, just completely giving up on life. I didn't care about anything anymore. I didn't have anything. I hated myself. I tried to kill myself quite a few times at that point. So that led me to 120 days ago, downtown Ottawa, bloody, blacked out, taken to the hospital by somebody, and seizures, throwing up blood, a failing liver, and I had hit my rock bottom. I'd been skipping work, and I have a pretty good job at the hospital, and I had lost all my friends and lost my family, basically. Not that I ever really had them, but all the trust was gone. So I picked up the phone that day in the hospital, and I called my parents, and I said, I surrender. I need help. And they could have got me into rehab that night, but I wanted one more day to pack, right? One more day to pack, and that was the one last hurrah. I know I got to detox drunk, and at that point on April 30th was the second time I was born. It was when I started to experience life for the first time in the way that I deserved. I began to love myself. I saw worth in myself. I, for the first time in my life, actually understood what happiness was. I was able to open up to my parents about everything, about my timeline, about the drugs I've done, about the resentments I hold for them for what they've done to me and how they made me feel, and the abuse and how it's not okay and how you don't do that to your kids. You don't do that to anybody. And they listened, and sobriety gave me my family. Sobriety gave me parents. They gave me people that cared, that listened, that understood me. And that's something that I'd never experienced, I'd never had. And now I can go home every day and say anything. And, my mom's still a nutcase, and she'll say her stuff, but there's boundaries now. You learn how to deal with it. And in recovery, there's been so many amazing things to happen. Like, I found a fellowship. It's called the Lost and Found. Anyone in Brockville, go check it out. It's unreal. The people that I've met there are absolutely amazing. I love them to death, and it's like lifelong friendships. You can really, really, really relate to everyone there, and that was something that I wasn't used to. I was all the normies out there. You don't really, really understand each other with this. And then my hobbies started coming back, and I started playing piano again and painting again, making bouquets, going to the gym, taking care of myself, cooking. I love cooking. So all these things just started happening in my life. I started hosting NA. I finished my first step in the workbook. It's not official till you finish it in the workbook. So I finished it in the workbook recently, and I got a sponsor. And every single day I can wake up without crippling anxiety, wondering what I did the day before, or what I had said, the lies that I had told, the manipulation. I can wake up happy and excited for a new day to start, and that is the greatest gift I've ever had. It's a whole new life. It's a whole new way of living. So I was able to forgive myself. I always blame myself for my Yaya's death for not taking care of her enough, because I was drinking, I was stealing her painkiller medication she refused to take, and I thought, she died because of me. In reality, you can't save someone from terminal cancer. So I remember being at rehab, and I was writing about this in my journal. And she always used to say when she died, she's going to fly away like a butterfly. And I was writing about it in my journal, how I forgave myself, and a little butterfly came and landed on the book. So I knew that she was there, and I knew that I was doing the right thing at that moment. So I'm 120 days clean right now. I think 3 more days. Thank you. Thank you. 3 more days till my 4 months. I'm going to the keg, and I'm going to have some steak. Really excited. And for the first time in my life, instead of living in black and white, I now live in color. So thanks, everyone.